Welcome to the HVAC-OLOGY experience, where we talk about all things HVAC industry, topics that are so hot, they are
Welcome to
cool.
Season 2 of HVAC-OLOGY. I am Ryan Hudson with my lovely co-host, Kelly Patterson.
Yay! Hi, Ryan. I've missed you.
Kelly, you took the words out of my mouth. I missed you too.
So
How have you
nice to be
been?
back in the chair. You know what? I have regained some sanity and I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling rested and rejuvenated and super excited about starting up HVACology again.
Is the reason why you feel rejuvenated is because now you are done with your master's?
Yes, it is.
Man, cue applause.
Cue applause.
So
Yay!
now do I need to call you Master Kelly? Like a
Well,
Jedi Master?
you don't make me call you Master Ryan, so I feel like, maybe we can both do that. Like I can call you Master Ryan and you can call me Master Kelly. We can just make that a bit if you'd like. Whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah,
I mean,
let's
we just up it to doctor. Let's just call each other doctor.
doctor.
Just for grin. Doctor.
So let me ask you this. Has it been more difficult for you to go to, oh, I don't know, the gas station, the grocery store now that HVACology is so famous? Like people are just looking and they're like,
No, listen though. I do have a story. Somebody stopped me on my way into work the other day, or not the other day, several months ago, right? When we were
a
really
police
heavily
officer?
into filming. Yeah, it wasn't a police officer.
Okay, good,
That was
good.
that's another story, Ryan. This person stopped me and he was like, "Listen, I've been listening to your podcast and you guys are making HVAC interesting."
Yes, that was the whole point of this.
Right? And I've had some of our interns in our intern program. This guy came up to me and he was like, "Listen, I'm listening to you guys while I'm on the treadmill at the gym." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course you are." So
Man.
it's really fun to hear our internal people. I haven't, the gas station isn't a thing yet, but I'm sure it will be a couple more months.
Yeah. So we're promoting people to better health with walking on their treadmill while listening to us talk about air
Exactly.
conditioning.
Exactly.
I love it.
Win-win.
Yeah. Yep. So out of all the things we could have possibly kicked off with season 2, I'm gonna be honest. I have been super pumped about the opportunity to be able to talk today to DuctSocks, and I've been wanting to have them on for a while. And today, Kelly, you have managed to get us Mr. Nick Paschke to come and talk to us from Ductsox. Hey, Nick.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going excelente. And just so you know, Nick, that is Spanish for excellent.
I was Spanish club president in high school, so very
Oh,
small school,
see?
but I think it was more popularity than my Spanish skills.
Man, we have learned something new already, Kelly. We have
I
to write that
know.
down.
I love it. Bueno.
I know.
So, Nick, one of the things that we like to do, and I think that we need to keep doing it in season 2, is to hear from the folks in our business, in our industry. How in the world did they get from graduation to being this guy over at DuctSocks? Can you kind of walk us through that trail to how we got to today, real quick for you?
I can. Hopefully, I can make it quick. So I grew up in central Wisconsin, so I went to Colby High School, and yes, it is where Colby cheese is originated from, believe it or not. So it's fun
Yum.
fact. And
Delicious.
I did not know what an engineer was coming out of school, but had experience in math and science. And dare I say, my grandparents owned a farm, and my dad, we built campers. So for me, I was very handy as
What kind of
a
farm was it?
dairy farm. Yeah, about
Nice.
100 to 200 head of cattle. But so I kind of grew up in that circle of central Wisconsin, and didn't know any engineers or any experience of people that had gone through school. Actually, I was the first person in my family to go to college. My
Awesome.
elders started family or went to the military. But the for me, I ended up going to school and using the math and science. Went to University of Wisconsin Platteville, which is a kind of a farming school down in the what we call the driftless area of Wisconsin. If you fun fact, if you didn't know that when the ice shaved Wisconsin, it kind of left part of it untouched, which is the southwest corner. And so it's a very beautiful part of the state they call the driftless area, but that's where Platteville's at.
I'm
So
learning so many new things.
I know.
exactly. But the
Nick, you should come on every week.
oh, I don't know about that. I talk too much. But the from the school perspective, it was worked to put myself through school. Had at one point I had 5 different jobs while with 17 engineering credits.
Ooh.
And the fun different jobs were bartender, ski instructor, and a janitor, and a welder, believe it or not, for portable welding. And then I was a finished carpenter for the university. So lots of different things going on all the time. I've always had a very diverse activities around me. And then basically as I finished up school, started working. One of my internships was with a company, or HVAC, a mechanical contractor company, doing work with airflow. And we had done dust collection systems for large companies. And so it got me familiar with airflow. So as I came to graduate, company Right Height was hiring, and one of the I interviewed, but had never heard of Ductsox or anything to go with it. And as it turns out, I ended up getting hired, and I was the first full-time employee hired dedicated to Ductsox.
Wow.
That is cool.
And so because I knew airflow from my internships, not from an air dispersion standpoint, but very clearly from the functional aspect of moving air through ducts and details. And for some reason, there was an interest in my personality from the ski instructing and bartending and everything else, that I wasn't just going to be huddled in front of my screen. And I think that has worked out quite well. And I started with DuctSocks very early on. I was the only employee for a number of years. We've added to that as we've had a pretty incredible team that we built over the years. And my role has changed many times, from developing product to going out and establishing a distribution network and finding partners just like Hoffman and Hoffman, to promote and sell the products, to moving back inside, to running marketing for a number of years, running product development for a number of years. And then as we develop more and more technical products, the interest and need was to have me move back out to the field to reconnect with customers and our distribution and interpret, how exactly we apply these products. And the role was eventually identified as a business development manager, but that's what I'm still doing. So I get involved with very specific accounts, tend to be larger, might tend to be global in scale, or larger applications, whether they range from professional sport venues to college campuses to wherever. Our team will pull me in if they need some level of expertise that might be helpful.
Very cool. Kelly, if I can brag on Nick and the other folks that we've interviewed that have a past in farming or have family that's farming, are they not the most resourceful people you know?
So resourceful and so interesting. So their interests are always varied, always. It's fantastic.
I guarantee you, Nick, the reason why you appreciate engineering and had the ability to weld, carpentry, everything is because of farming. I guarantee you.
100%.
Because you're out in the middle of nowhere, you got to figure a solution out right then and there.
If you break it, you have to fix it.
Right. And there's no time to run to the Home Depot that's 800 miles away, right?
No.
That's awesome.
It's that mentality of never let an inanimate object beat you.
That's right. That's right.
How many employees do, I'm sorry. I interrupted you, Ryan. I'm sorry. How many employees does DuctSocks have right now?
Ooh, that's a good loaded question. I hadn't counted. I would say probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 55.
That's awesome. So from 1 to 55, that's huge.
Yeah.
So
well, and it's a lot of shared resources too with our parent company. So I mean, some of those experiences are shared. It's hard to count. That's why I was kind of indicating that. Yep.
So Nick, do you get to wear the T-shirt that says "I'm number one"?
I hope so.
At work.
No, but I will honestly say that our team almost diligently introduces me as that almost every time I'm in the field.
It's number one.
All right, here's yeah.
Well, that can be a Star Trek Next Generation reference right there.
It's
Uh,
almost embarrassing it to a point because it has been a long time. It's 30 years. It's been fantastic though, and its stories are just continuing to grow. That's the really fun part.
That's very cool. So Nick, my background, you might not know this, was I worked for a consulting engineering firm for years, and that's where I first, and this was like 20 years ago, and that's where I first heard about DuctSocks. And really, the only whenever we were applying or specking out DuctSocks, it was whenever we were talking about pools, indoor pools. And the reason why is because the corrosion element or the corrosive environment that is a pool area kind of, I always assumed that that was the genesis of it. Was that the genesis of it? Is that a popular thing? And then probably what we need to do as well, Nick, when we get into this is kind of explain what in the world is the product DuctSocks for those that are not in our industry. So maybe start off with DuctSocks and then kind of walk me through the
Yeah.
genesis of it.
Well, I appreciate that. And I mean, DuctSocks as a product is essentially a custom-made air dispersion system that just happens to be made out of fabric. And for us, we manufacture every piece of it for every individual project. So if we identify whether it happens to be a laboratory or a restaurant or a sports stadium, the product is configured and built to the airflow that that space needs. Not only the airflow volume coming in, but how it's dispersed to make sure that it's comfortable. There's a number of different product components that go into the product that identifies how it looks when it's deflated, how it lasts, and then if it's air porous, so no condensation can happen or no moisture on the product, that makes it healthier, if you will, for the occupants of the building. But that's generally what the concept of the product is. And it really is, it's a large air diffuser. And it just happens to be visual and clean and lightweight, easy to install. All of the fun things that come with the product that are disruptively different than what the industry norm has been. And it's been kind of funny to see it come about. The genesis of the product, if I can,
Yeah.
Where it started was food processing. And so if we think about comfort in your normal HVAC space or heated and cooled space, we've got a pretty large comfort zone. And what's interesting is you get into food processing, specifically like red meat or dairy or anything, suddenly the supply air temperature drops considerably. So you might be in a red meat cutting plant where the space happens to be 38 to 42 degrees. To maintain that temperature, your supply air has to be much colder. And if you suddenly look at your the workforce that might be in that space, to create that environment, the volume of airflow that might be required could create a lot of drafts. And those drafts could be uncomfortable for the people. They could also be uncomfortable or cause impact on the product. And the example is, of course, if you have meat on a conveyor and you have a high velocity air, it dries out and it doesn't have as long shelf life, or it has some other issues. But more as a safety side, the people that are working on that production line, if they feel like they're 28 degrees, suddenly, it's very uncomfortable. And so we put a DuctSocks in, we leak all of the airflow through the fabric for that type of environment, or all the air breathes through the fabric. Suddenly the draft goes away. The space feels 15 to 20 degrees warmer for the employees while they're maintaining temperature. Plus, there's no risk of condensation because with that air movement they have. And so we actually, for a number of years when I first started, I mean, that's where I was, before I started with the company, the largest, or one of the larger projects that got them to hire me essentially and dedicate was in Tar Heel, North Carolina. So Smithfield Foods, which was Carolina Food Processors at the time. The facility could I think it was process 52,000 hogs a day, which is an incredible number. But the amount of movement of product and everything through that space, they really loved their DuctSocks as to how it makes the environment much more comfortable for their employees and for their product.
Very interesting. And so, I think maybe to go back a little bit for those of you that are not familiar with our industry. So if you walk into a lot of restaurants, one of the big things that they do now is they have these open ceilings so you can kind of see everything above it. And where historically what we're talking about is where you would see maybe spiral, silver, aluminum duct. Instead of seeing that metal duct, what DuctSocks is this fabric that comes and typically can be in a cylindrical shape. But Nick, I think we can do a lot more than just cylindrical now too, right?
We can, yeah. We do different surface mounts. We've quarter rounds. We do an oval. It doesn't look the best, but it functions. But we're continually improving, and it ultimately, every product that we have, to your credit before, we work with engineers throughout the industry to find out what solutions they're looking for. And if there's something that our current product doesn't really fit, we have the flexibility to work through and find something that will. And whether it be a combination of a part metal, part fabric system, or whichever, we have a lot of flexibility that's really served us well.
So from a design standpoint, I've ran out of the unit. I've come up because the unit's sitting outside, and I've done hard duct 90, hard duct 90. I come through, and I transition from that hard duct over to DuctSocks for both the distribution and for the aesthetics of it. Kind of walk me through, if you can, a little bit of the engineering. So, there's so much CFM, or cubic feet per minute, that we're trying to, of air volume, that we're trying to get delivered into that space. So how do you kind of make sure that, the air distributes evenly throughout that sock?
Good question. Yeah, the one of the things that we've become experts in is, I guess, let's maybe take a step back. If we do have a volume of airflow coming into that space, we'd first want to identify the space and kind of quantify where the air needs to go. So with working with the engineers, if we have specific zones, we can be very precise about where that air needs to go. And then from there, we'd build a roadmap of routing of where the fabric should go or can be placed in the space. Like you said, the silver metal duct or the fabric, that cylindrical shape, as it would lead from the supply out to those zones. And then from there, we would work back and have that design. We'd select the diameters based on the volume of airflow, how much would go into each of those portions of the fabric, and that would let us pick the diameter. And the standard that we look to is designing with, our standard is 1,600 feet per minute. Feet per minute, which is the speed of the air running down the length of the fabric. So that lets us select a diameter based on a volume. And if we wanted to have a quieter system, or if we have a system with a number of elbows or fittings, we would choose a lower number. We might take that energy down, where instead of 1,600 feet per minute, we might go to 1,400 or 1,200. Or in some applications that are extremely acoustically sensitive, we can design that diameter much larger so that air moving down the length is much slower for much lower noise generation.
So to that point, the reason why you can do, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason why you can do that high velocity of air is because it being, most of the designs are porous. It allows for it to distribute amongst a much larger surface area, and then therefore you don't have it basically screaming, because it'd be screaming, right, if it was just going to a couple of diffusers. But with with your product, it's not going to be loud because it's able to distribute amongst a larger volume. Is that right? Do I have that right?
We can make a loud system. To your point, we could put a few holes in it and let the static pressure be really high. But that static pressure, for us, the balance that we work with internally, and where this is different than a lot of other mechanical design, because as an engineer, you traditionally design for, you accumulate the static pressure from the farthest diffuser back to the supply. And what's different with DuctSocks is we basically, where the fabric attaches to the metal, will establish a flow rate and a static pressure. And then from there, we take responsibility to account for the quantity of orifices for the exact airflow to generate that static pressure back, to make sure that we have uniform distribution of air down the length of the fabric. The interesting thing you may note, that if you look at DuctSocks in the space, we often, different than metal duct, we typically don't put a lot of reducers in. We typically run a longer run because we're relying on static regain within the system as part of that length to make sure that we get a balanced pressure. And what's interesting about that is the velocity pressure converts so efficiently that with most straight systems, at least about 100 foot long or somewhere in that range, we're going to see higher static pressure at the end cap than the beginning. So that's why we developed our adjustable flow device that's essentially like a fabric damper inside, just to help eat up static regain to make sure that the system remains more balanced. And go ahead.
So with so to help me with my thought a little bit. So whenever you're doing 100 feet of a DuctSocks versus a standard run, like, are you having to account for more? I guess the horsepower could stay the same at the motor of the fan, or even decrease a little bit. Is that correct?
That's my understanding for most systems, that we can we can design. We normally design for 1/2 inch static pressure, but that's a number we assign as part of design. We can design for lower, we can design for higher. It's not always perfectly tuned. So that if there is a system where we need to design for a lower pressure, an example, we did a convention center in Green Bay, just across from Lambeau, and they in that application, because for local energy code, the maximum static pressure could be 1/4 inch. And it was a substantial volume of airflow. They were 52-inch diameter ductstocks in this expo hall, but it's operating at 1/4 inch because of local energy code.
Yep. And I think maybe for the listener, kind of if you could imagine taking a straw maybe and putting it in your mouth and then blowing on it, and then taking your finger and putting on the end of that straw and then slowly adding pressure to that straw, that is like building up static pressure. And so the less, as you can imagine, it's going to be harder to blow through that straw as you close up that hole. The more free or the less static we have in the system, the easier it is on the entire system as a whole. So therefore, getting better energy.
Yep, absolutely.
So kind of alluding to what we were talking about earlier about deflating, inflating, one of my favorite things to do, Nick, is whenever I go into a gym. So my children have played basketball over the years, and so I go into different gyms. I love it when I see the old school duct sock that's hanging there, because I know when it starts heating up from those players on the court, that all of a sudden that unit's going to kick on and it's going to scare the bejeebies out of everybody sitting in that stand when that thing inflates. So talk to me a little bit about the different generations of duct sock, going from that basically that flat sock that's hanging there whenever it's not expanded to where it's fully expanded to what you guys can do now.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I think your experience and excitement is not shared by many architects that we work with. I think that's you've just explained every nightmare that they have. And I think we've had some definitely some church environments that we provided product to that deflated early on. That was not their experience. That was more of a moment, if you will.
Well, that's just the Holy Spirit, Nick.
I don't think they felt it the same, but I agree.
Oh well.
No, we've even had, it's funny because we did have one customer that really liked the fact that the product deflate. They would purposely shut their units off and start them back up at bar time. And this was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So they were telling people to go home with our product, which was kind of interesting.
That's awesome.
But no, that's been one of the challenges for us as a company, was trying to get over the early stigma of the product that deflates. And we really tasked our engineers with in-house team of engineers, I should say, from a product development standpoint, in identifying solutions that, I mean, soft starts definitely help mitigate that. But I think as we look at other solutions, we started adding structure to the product, and we have several different grades of structure, to the point where we have some products that have rings in it, so it no longer deflates fully, would not be as exciting of an inflate, to we have what we call our Skelecore product now, which is our full-blown FTS product, which it completely changes the dialogue to where we basically hang the structure and wrap the fabric around it, and then stretch the frame stretches in length to tighten the fabric around the frame. And as we look at our product, the earlier version that deflates, when we look at durability, that product has a warranty in the neighborhood of 10 years. We'd expect 15 to 20 years life expectancy for some of those that cycle a bit, because just like anything else, that cycling creates a little bit of stress over time. The fabric isn't likely to fail, but it could be a clip or some component that's a durable component that there might be some abrasion or contact points that eventually creates a challenge for the customer to look for a replacement. As we move up in product where the fabric moves less, the durability extends. Like our FTS product has a 20-year warranty. So as we look at that 20-year warranty, we're expecting a 30 to 40-year life expectancy, because you really would have a hard time seeing when the fan is off. It really does look the same all the time.
Could you tell me what FTS means?
It's a it's a full tensioning system. That's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it essentially it's a every 6 foot we'd have a full ring with spokes inside the product itself, and then that's interconnected down the length. So it's kind of got a spine that runs down the center,
Okay.
and actually every one of those rings is connected to the building. So there's no clips or anything on the outside of the fabric that attaches it. The fabric really does just hang on the frame.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think the great thing too, just thinking about it now, I've never thought about it, but actually DuctSocks is a great vibration isolator, because you're not going to get any kind of vibration motion through that. So that's cool. So,
and to your credit before, it does actually reduce reflective noise, because it is a fabric material, right?
That
So
makes
it's
sense.
kind of a
Yeah.
sound baffle. Yep.
that is interesting. So, I've seen it to where it's just a breathable duct. So it just basically looks like a long tube with nothing really associated with it as far as diffusers. And then I've seen it to where you actually have physical diffusers. So do y'all have the ability to design it to where there is a breathability to the fabric, and kind of change the intent of it, if you will?
To some extent. I mean, most environments that we're designing for are fairly stable, so we can design for that where there's not a lot of dynamics. We do have some adjustable diffusers that we'll put in the product. Kind of going back to your mention before on pools, we often see putting adjustables in the corners, or off fittings and other areas where it's otherwise challenging to get airflow into, or there might be other architectural elements that we will need airflow to move around,
Yeah.
if you will. Those are some of the areas where we see more of that bespoke or adjustable designs. But in many applications, we're right now, especially in the southeast part of the country, or areas where condensation or there might be some concern for that. The air porous material really is something that we've been leading with. And so a little bit of air will leak through the fabric itself, but as that air leaks through the fabric, the linear vents or the orifices are going to pick that airflow up and distribute it down into the breathing zone. So it's not airflow that's lost. It's just airflow that's protecting that fabric from being in contact or direct contact with the environment that it's in.
So you're really using those diffusers for the sake of throw to be able to get the conditioned air out into a particular spot. Gotcha.
Yep. No, and the range of those orifices will select anywhere from a 1/4-inch orifice to, I think the largest orifice that I've been in contact with is I think we ran 9-inch diameter orifices at the sphere.
Very cool. So with this system that is DuctSocks, I've participated in moving over from the engineering side of things to the mechanical contractor side of things, to where I had to be an extra hand on the job, and the labor that's required to do the snap lock, to put the mastic on, to tape it, to staple it. It just seems like there's a lot of steps that you can get away from now whenever you move over to your product. It sounds like I've done both, and it seemed like it was a massive energy saver going over to your product.
The feedback has been really positive from the field, and I think in working with a number of the groups that we do, and really the big push that we've seen from the contracting side has been on the design build, where they really like the product because to your credit, it does save a lot of time on the installation. Suddenly we're looking at examples of the product goes in a little bit later, so it's much easier to access, because if you look at your average ceiling, the metal might be hung right away before there's even a roof. And where fabric, wait a minute, it's more of a finished space. It's much easier to access. It's going to be easier work. And I sometimes joke and say that fabric is apprentice friendly, because it is something that does not require the skill that sometimes, if you look at the skill required to bend some of the fittings that are required for metal, it's strategically like closer to the equipment room. That is a high level of skill that is needed to bend the metal and make that fit properly. And then once you get into the space, the fabric itself becomes very easy to install. And The feedback we've gotten aside from that has been, boy, it takes a lot less space on a job site. You know, we'll ship a whole container and it's in 2 Gaylord boxes. Like a whole convention center's in 2 Gaylord boxes versus truckloads of metal duct. And when you think about the laydown space in some of these, that's premium in some of these environments, to be able to condense that down to a much smaller footprint is really impactful.
Well, I would think just from a green standpoint of all of these different materials now that you can do away with because you're using this fabric duct.
Yeah, no, and we've led a little bit in that. We've definitely, as a supplier, we have our EPDs. So we've worked with MEP 2040. So some of the design firms that are involved in that might have seen some of our communications there. But from the sustainability side, the surprise for me has been working with certain customers that are really exploring that market much more so. And the feedback we've gotten from their research has been that fabric was 70% less embodied carbon than metal duct.
Wow.
And, you know, for the use cases where it's been being applied, they're very, very happy.
Yeah.
Very cool. So the maintenance guy completely forgets to put in a new filter, which never happens, but forgets to put in a new filter. The unit is in a disgusting environment, and all of this debris and dirt has flown through the inside of your duct. So do you have to just take it down and start all over again, or what are your options with something like that?
No, Ryan, that's a good call. Our experience from being in food processing has led us to, down to our DNA, we make sure that our product can be cleaned. It often doesn't need to. It's not like it shouldn't function or degrade to the point where it impacts the unit or changes the life expectancy. But if you do have particulate in the duct that you do want to clean it, it can be removed and laundered. And the sectional lengths, the heaviest individual section of fabric that we manufacture is 26 pounds. Wow. So a lot of these commercial launderers, when you look at it, they're 100, 150 pound, 200 pound machines. So very easy to clean the product. You take it down, turn it inside out, clean it, and be able to put it back up. Most will never, because they might capture the filters, they may not, but it's something that we've actually worked with companies like Service Masters and developed a nationwide clean in place program. So in the event that they, example, Little Caesars Arena in Detroit for the Pistons play, as well as the Red Wings, right? So they have black ductsox in a large arena, and they wanted to have an idea on how to clean it in place. So we developed that with Service Masters for them. So certainly something that we're very mindful of. But the difference for us, though, is we don't require maintenance as part of our coverage for warranty, where I think a number of other providers might have that catch with their products. We don't. So
I would bet too that that's a nice option for in case like there's a fire or something that happens and you get a lot of soot and smoke inside the ductwork, that you have the ability to clean it.
Yeah, no, I've been involved in the market for a long time, and I will be honest, after we have customers all around the world, and I did follow up with a number of our customers after Katrina, and just to see how things had gone for them down on the Gulf Coast. And the feedback was pretty quick that their ductsox was their favorite part, because they took it down, they were able to launder it, put it back up in place, and they were able to get their units running much earlier than some of the other areas, because if it was metal, they'd had to take it fully out and throw it away. And
sure.
Huge feedback from some of our customers, and that we value that engagement with our customers highly. That feedback's good.
So, Nick, you mentioned black ductsox. So one of my very favorite things is going into places and looking up and seeing ductsox and seeing the many different colors that are available. Can you get any color that you want in ductsox, or are there what are the rules there?
So Kelly's asking because she has been really wanting to have my face printed multiple times on the ductsox in her office. Is that she's really trying to get to that point?
That is really what I want.
That is entirely possible.
Yes.
We have in our fabric technology, we're pretty excited that we can do pretty much anything with the fabric. And
so cool.
one of the crazier examples that I sometimes share is we worked with a bowling alley in near Fresno, and they actually put in the I can only being older, I can only relate it to the 80s, but it's the neon geometric shape, like the neon geometric spandex and we made a DuctSocks with all of that
Wow.
going on, if you will. We have another firehouse that we put flames all the way down the DuctSocks, and it looks really cool. And we there's a number of things that we can do, and I'm still surprised. We do have some customers that have genuinely paid for their HVAC system by putting sponsors' logos on our product. So they'll have.
That's
I think
really
it's
smart.
Yeah, a billiard hall in Paducah, Kentucky, I think if I recall correctly, was by a number of sponsors. They basically sold the spaces on the DuctSocks, and they paid for their whole equipment.
Wow.
But
yeah,
That's really cool.
I've seen a lot of times where you could do where they had clouds on it, so that's cool. You can have other things. I've seen universities where they'll have their logo on it
Their
too.
logo, yeah.
Yeah, no, it
Ryan's
definitely is a
face would
fun
be
part of our
perfect.
product.
I'll look for that in the mail, Nick.
Send a picture. We'll see what we can do.
All right.
Well, now that we've kind of understand what DuctSocks is and the kind of the history, the genesis of it, I guess the next part is kind of, are there any kind of exciting things in the future for DuctSocks?
There are, and I think we, as we look at our story and our company and where we're headed, I think we're really seeing a lot of better engagements with industry, with the business development managers like myself working with end users. We're identifying more use cases within as they explore deeper. And I mean, some of the interesting things that we get involved with that I never would have thought is like we're cooling video walls. We actually have DuctSocks behind video wall screens on Times Square.
Wow.
We've been doing work in gun ranges. So control the airflow for air moving downrange, which weirdly enough, and I never would have guessed this in a million years, but there's a gun range at the UN, and
No
that has
way.
DuctSocks.
You guys are famous.
Yeah, and for us, I think the big step for us has been kind of really diving into that sound and looking at the acoustic benefit and getting more into studios. We are looking at recycled content to be much more of our product, and working with our partners that we have. Actually, many of our fabrics, you may or may not know this, but many of our fabrics come from the Carolinas. So small
no
providers.
tariffs.
Well, it's a partner we found early and we favor. So it's something that we, regardless of where we sew the product, the fabric's coming out of the Carolinas for most of our fabrics. So it's kind of, if you didn't know that, it's kind of cool.
That is
Everything
very cool.
great comes from Carolina. I mean, it's
I did send my mom down there recently, so she lives down in Pickens, South Carolina. So
I like it.
yeah.
So maybe for this last piece, Nick, if kind of what I love to do is just kind of hear a story from you of something, maybe a memorable or challenging project that you've had to go through in your 30 years with DuctSocks.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there's been a number. The one that's probably more memorable than any as of late was I had a conversation with the architect for a stadium, and basically the only question that he asked was, "Can you do oval? Can you do vertical oval?" And my quick response was, "If anybody can, we can." And because I do trust in the team of engineers that we have, both from a design front and the product development side, and we've never made anything like this before. And I reached out to our team internally, and the immediate reaction was, "Have you seen our oval?" I said, "Well, let's sketch something out and see what we can be a little inventive and see if we can come up with something." And the story kind of went quickly to the contractor was awarded, and they ended up basically saying, "We don't care what's specified. If you want to be involved in this, you need to have a sample here on site in 3 weeks." And for something we've never built before, our team was absolutely incredible in coming up with a mock-up in a very short amount of time of what was at the time the world's largest ductsox. It's 12.5 foot tall, vertical oval, 6 foot diameter, and it happens to be for the Allegiant Stadium for the Raiders in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And the the experience was different and very unique in that it's the first time I've ever seen where an engineering team or a project team has taken the salesmanship out of it. And it basically is, if you want to be part of this project, have the product hanging here. We are going to evaluate it. Here's metal, here's you, here's all the other fabric players in the marketplace. And all parties were invited to participate. And for me, it was very rewarding to be able to see what our team did and how well they performed under that pressure and stress. And we ended up doing the project, which was very exciting, because I think we have, I think in total it's 700,000 CFM that we disperse in the facility. It's really big numbers, and there's the partnership throughout the project was pretty exciting, where the engineering firm themselves even wrote their own story that's still on their website that talks a little bit about the experience working with the world's largest ducts or fabric duct project or DuctSocks project. And then the contractor even told us that they saved 5,000 hours of installation time compared to what they thought. So
wow,
that relationship has gone further, where they ran into an opportunity or challenge at the Sphere to bring all the airflow into the Sphere in Vegas as well. Same company, same contractor, and they reached out to us to do another Herculean feat of something we've never done, and that's come up with 13-foot diameter ductsox, which is, I mean, tunnel size.
right?
And there the airflow that cools the high definition screen on the inside all comes through the ductsox, which is kind of an exciting project to be a part of.
Did they make you compete this time, or did they just give you the job?
Well, it wasn't so much that we were given the job, but we were brought to the table, and then we were heavily grilled by the engineering and acoustics consultants.
Okay.
And we had to prove ourselves. I mean, it was a very lengthy process with one acoustic consultant that's also a professor at NYU. It was very scrutinized. And I will say that was with the ME group out of Boulder, and they've become very good partners too, in that they understand. So I mean, we've definitely working with some of the engineering groups out there that test our will, and not so much. They're not here just to listen to us. They're actually, and we get involved and go do testing. And next week, again, I'm going out and doing some more acoustic testing with another customer. And it's something that we love, those opportunities to be challenged, because really it's not so much if we can, it's just what conditions do we need to design for to make it work appropriately. And the key thing in our product that's different, I think, than what most air distribution solutions are, is we're really not geared to be a catalog solution. We are 100% custom made, tailored to the project, and it should be less cost. It should be much lower weight and last much longer. And that's really what our goal has been as a company.
Wow, that's very good. Nick, you don't get to talk to too many people that have been a part of a company that has created market disruption. And whenever you see market disruption, it's something that kind of makes you pause, because you've rethought something that everybody thought couldn't be redone. And I mean this with all sincerity. DuctSocks is just very impressive that they took such a mundane product such as ductwork, and you rethought it and you made it into something that is disrupting the market and that people like. It to Kelly's point earlier, you kind of get excited walking into a space and seeing that it's got clouds on it or some print. So kudos to you guys.
Well, thank you for that. It's been admittedly a big part of our story that is the unsung, because we have become the Kleenex of the brand. But the bigger part of our story is our partners, like we have with Hoffman & Hoffman and all of our distributors throughout the markets, that not only carry the message with their customers, but they bring their customers' interest back, so we can identify solutions, or if we have the right or if we don't. And that partnership has really been the big part of the story, in my opinion, that helps us do the right things for customers.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know I'm better for it. Kelly?
I say this all the time, but this was one of my favorites. I say it all the time.
Well, we certainly
Thank you,
appreciate
Nick.
the opportunity. Thank you for inviting us, and we look forward to any information that we can help you with, and anybody that comes up. Thank you.
Very cool. Kelly, did you learn something new today?
I did, but I can't remember what it was. It was the FTS. Wait, hold
Yeah.
on. Let's see if I can do it. Flexible. Something about a spine. There's a spine in there, but it's not. That's not the
Full
word.
tension system. Full tension.
Full tension system.
See?
Think of it's like
I
the
was-
bike that has the full tension system. It's the full
Okay.
suspension, but it's a full tension system. Yep.
Okay. So I didn't learn it, but I'll never forget it again.
There you go.
There you go.
I love it. Kelly,
Mhm.
what should folks do if they like our podcast? Now, I'm sorry, our podcast that now has had thousands of listens.
Thousands of listens. We're practically viral. If they enjoy our podcast, they should subscribe or like a podcast, follow us. There's so many things they could do.
Very good. Well, this is the end of episode 1 of season 2.
Yep.
I had a great time. Thank you again, Nick and DuctSocks, for being with us today. And that's all.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
I know.
Took a rocket past Saturn. Things don't seem to matter much to me anymore. Got lost inside a daydream. Get sick of all schemes they play on their machines. I lost so many words as I got older. You would have thought I would have stored them in my love folder. Accidentally wrote these words down. Thought all the best of me faded in an endless sea. But you always bring me back at your blue eyes. 20 years of staring at that freckle on your left shoulder. Who would have thought all I needed was to think of you to bring back the words inside? But you always bring me back at your blue eyes. 20 years of staring at that freckle on your left shoulder. Who would have thought all I needed was to think of you to bring back the words inside of me? I drove an hour to see you. Things just seem to matter more to me anyway. Got lost in reality, no answers to cancer, we never got to talk. Lost so many friends as I got older. Wish I had the strength to hold you a little bit longer. Always meant to write these words down. Thought all the best of you faded in an endless sea. But you always bring me back at your blue eyes. 20 years of staring at that freckle on your left shoulder. Who would have thought all I needed was to think of you to bring back the words inside of me? Get your blue eyes. 20 years of staring at that freckle on your left shoulder. Who would have thought all I needed was to think of you to bring back the words inside? But you always bring me back at your blue eyes. 20 years of staring at that freckle on your left shoulder. Who would have thought all I needed was to think of you to bring back the songs inside of me? inside of